is validating when everybody else nods, as often happens. So, thanks for being here, guys. Like I said, I'm excited to do this. It's been a minute and I feel like we could just all kind of use this right now, myself included. So I will be watching the replays for myself. How are you all? I know some of you have been through inspiration shift stuff like seemingly 10 times, and some of you have been part of this world for 24 hours and probably haven't heard anything about it. Did any of the old people, did you guys actually like re-listen, re-watch, yeah.
I did not this time because
Yeah.
I've done it every other time, and I've actually been dealing with like a 3-day migraine. So I was just like, you know what? I think just listening this time.
Yeah, just listen.
I think.
I re-listened on double speed this morning while I was walking to physical therapy.
Yes. It's like my favorite thing about the podcast because I was like, I need to 2x myself. I'm a slow talker. So I listen to myself on 2x as well. All right. So there's a few kind of like main areas where we talk about the inspiration shift in terms of like the big ones are you actually creating a vision for yourself, or is what you are telling yourself you want actually a fantasy? I was thinking about this because like I found myself tapping the Zillow app last night and I was like, you are not buying a house right now, stop it. And yet there I was looking at houses that I will not buy. But I was, like not cleaning, and so much easier to just go buy a new house off of Zillow than to clean the one you have right now. So that's one area. And then I think the other big thing is the whole, like, what is self-care for you? If it's not self-discipline and it's not self-indulgence. I think most of you know about the whole doer beer thing. I'm going to give a quick rundown on that because we should all be on the same page about what it is to be a doer, what it is to be a beer. But if you have not watched it, please watch the like on my website. I can link it up. I did a whole talk about the ways that we are wired to grow, right? Whether to do first or to be first. And that's kind of important here because even though I didn't know it, like the do or beer thing was not a thing when I made the prep work videos. Okay. That didn't even exist yet. But the whole self-discipline versus self-indulgence thing that I talk about in the inspiration shift is, are you showing up as a doer or are you showing up as a beer? Right? Beers are going to run away from their feelings. Now this feels big. Oh, I don't like my house right now. And so I'm going to go look at a different one. Right. I'm going to eat my feelings. I'm going to Netflix binge them away. And doers are going to be inclined to be like, I'm going to work this out. Right. I'm going to do my way out of this thing. I don't like the result I'm getting. I don't want to feel feelings. And so I'm going to go do. Right. And my mantra will be that I don't know, all the things about lazy people, right? Or how we have to be disciplined and consistent. And I mean, there's one meme after another that rewards the idea of self-discipline. So those are kind of like the two big chunks, right? The fantasy vision thingy and the what is actually self-care for you thingy. As a reminder, in case you did not notice, there are PDFs and worksheet type things that go along with the videos. And as we have gone through this a handful of times, I have added things into those worksheets that I don't talk about in the videos, right? So like some of you were like, I don't get the whole asking thing. I don't get asking for small things, or like, I have no problem. I have no problem asking for what it is I want, right? And so what we noticed was that some of you need to pay attention to what it is you're tolerating instead. And I describe all of that in the worksheet, right? So there are places where I have set up like alternative exercises or options for you if something that we're talking about doesn't quite land right. Yeah, I'm doing, this is 6 months worth of hand waving that I have to catch up on. Okay. My hands have been underused. So I say that as like a reminder to check that out and make sure those exercises or those PDFs are also where like I talk about, okay, well, if you figure out that you're running away from something right now, if you're running away from creating success in your business, you can't just be like, well, don't know what to do about that, right? So I walk you through, here are the questions to ask yourself if you're going to switch the motivation, right? Because in the email that I sent yesterday, I think the most important line in there was that you can take any action for 2 different reasons, right? So sometimes people are like, but should I do this or should I do that? And I'm like, I don't know. Why are you doing it? That's all that actually matters, right? So sometimes people, you guys, there are people who go to the gym every day and are incredibly healthy physically, but it is terrible for them from a headspace perspective because they would beat themselves up so bad if they didn't go to the gym one morning, right? Well, that's not healthy either. So just because you're doing a healthy thing or a good thing doesn't mean that that is the thing that's actually right for you, right? Same way, like I have told people, yo, if you need a Netflix binge because that's what feels good and right now, then just do it, right? It's not like you're going to spend a month on Netflix. At some point, you're going to be like, I think I want to do something different. I think I'm going to get up now. I think I'm going to make a sandwich, right? And but this is why, like, I can't tell you, you have to start practicing discerning for yourself, what is my motivation, right? Why am I doing this thing? Why am I taking this action? That's the whole premise behind this shift. That's the reason why we start with this shift, because I don't want you to go through all of prep work being like, I have to do this or my head is going to be screwed. And if my head is screwed, then my business will never take off, which like we can all kind of laugh at, but we've all kind of been there. Okay. So you're going to be in a much better place if you're like, there are changes that I want to make. There are things that I would like to improve. Oh, I see that I feel better if I do things this way. Oh, I notice that these things don't suck anymore and I'm more able to take action if I'm coming at it from this place. That is a much better place to grow from, right? And so that's kind of what we're doing in this shift. That's kind of what the questions in the PDF walk you through. The other big thing that I wanted to talk about, the places where you guys are not getting results, the places where you are frustrated, the places where you feel like you're beating your head against the wall. Those are places where, to some extent or another, you likely have some form of trauma. The opposite of trauma is choice. And it was the thing that I noticed myself saying a lot when I was listening back to the when I was listening back to the lessons, is like I said it a handful of times. Like the point is that you choose, right? So when we have trauma, our head says, this is how things have to be. This is how things have to go. This is the way the world is set up. This is what I have to do in order to be safe. Fundamentally, that's the crux of it, right? I have to do things this way in order to be safe. Okay. And so once we start to recognize like, oh, wait, I have a choice here. There is something different I could do. That's when we start to untangle some of our trauma response. Okay. And we're not really talking about like trauma healing in here, but it is very trauma informed, right? Like, what the heck do we do if we find ourselves stuck and like can't move forward, right? Well, then we have to find places where we can acknowledge that we have options, where we can acknowledge, oh, there is something I could do different, which is why there are things like asking for small things, right? Find a safe person, ask for something, figure out what it is you're tolerating, and acknowledge where it is you can make a choice to choose something different, right? To get something different for yourself. Okay.
I think for me, one of the problems that comes up is that the fact that you can take the same action for two different reasons. Because I think it's kind of a mental shortcut. If I say to myself, if I take a bath, that always makes me feel better. But then I have to kind of stop and think, like, okay, that's my go-to, but why am I doing it? And so I think it kind of increases your mental load in a sense, which makes it annoying that I have to choose all the time.
Yes. So, right. But okay, you bring up a really good point, right? Is that, which is why in the video about like where it is you should move forward first, I said that most of you should not use your business, right? Because if you are in here, you probably have a ton of shit about your business, right? So let's not start there. Don't start with the biggest boulder and see if you can move it. That is the fastest way to like really annoy yourself, right? This is why I like got so flippin' excited when people are like, we ate burritos 4 times this week because I wanted to, right?
Really,
We got a
pumpkin
real
4 times this
like, we got a real Christmas tree because I wanted to. You gotta like, you can flex the muscle in areas where you have less shit because it's less scary, right? Like, if you have all kinds of stuff in your business, but your partner is your safe person, or you have a mentor that is your safe person, or you have like a thing that you've always done that always makes you feel better, right? That is like the area where you feel okay to show up most like yourself. Start there. Start there. This is why we talk about momentum. Don't try like this whole like eat the frog shit. No, don't do that. It's not a good idea. Okay, it's not a good idea. We're doing more like the whole how do you eat an elephant one bite at a time kind of thing. That is much more our philosophy here. Okay. I feel like I have now done the like general gist of the inspiration shift. Also, sometimes I have to selectively ignore the chat box because otherwise these recordings would be crazy. How does this sit with any or all of you? And was there a particular place where you were like, that I don't like, or that I need? And by all means, don't all speak at once. Oh, that's funny.
The small asks, the asking for help, it's both what I don't like and what I need. And even last week, I've been trying to talk to myself about like, ask for what you want, ask for help. That's actually been more the thing that's been coming out. And so like last week I got a haircut. I didn't wait 6 months to get it. I asked for help in updating the style and for some products. And I didn't like the help that I got. The dude was like in a real rush at the end. He almost didn't sell me the products, which I think he gets some money off of it. He wasn't motivated to help me, basically.
Yes.
So there's that also, asking for small asks and small ones and not particularly liking the result. That trips me up.
Yes. which is not uncommon, unfortunately. Some of you scream of rugged independence. Like, for the record, I find this particularly prevalent among oldest children, immigrants or children of immigrants, and or people who have been thrust into like a caregiver type of situation, right? Which, like, quick math tells me one of those three things is many of you here, and that's just what I know. Because there's such a payoff for figuring shit out on your own, right? It's like you have to figure out what the cultural norms are, or you have to be the big kid, or you have to be like the smart kid. Also, like if you were in any form of like gifted program or something, you're probably screwed in this regard, okay? With all the love in my heart. And so this, like, I get rewarded for being independent thing often comes from, I'm disappointed if I try to not be independent, right? So exactly what you just described reinforces this idea of like, like, I'm going to go ahead and just figure this out on my own. I can probably YouTube some styling products and then like order that stuff off Amazon, and then I'll just do it myself, right? And that way I don't need to involve anybody else in my decision-making process. It's reinforced for us that we're better off deciding for ourselves, right? So if you're in that boat, the key there is that, one, you pay attention to, okay, how is it that you do want to be supported, right? Do you actually need the help, or do you just want to be seen? And I use just really loosely there. Sometimes the most important thing you can do is be seen. Like, many of you have experienced that in here, right? Where like, oh, the value of these calls is that I realize I'm not crazy and by myself in the thoughts in my head, right? Being seen is incredibly valuable. And yet sometimes what we do actually need is a tangible result. What we do actually want is for somebody to take that thing off of our plate for us, okay? So you kind of need to know, am I looking for help with the emotional labor of this decision, or am I looking for help actually executing? This is the same for when you guys delegate in your businesses, okay? Sometimes you need, I know Arlene's like, no, I do not, we're not going to talk about the delegation bear. Sometimes what you guys need help with is just somebody helping you make a decision, right? Is this like, help me actually put a stake in the ground, right? I do, like, this is Sam for me, you guys. Like, she's like, Jess, what are we doing with this? And then literally just because she sends me the message, I'm like, oh, here is a decision that I've made for you. If she wouldn't message me, that thing would just float off in the ethers for 3 months, right? And I would just keep punting the decision down the road. Worry about that later, right? A lot of people think what they need help with is the task, right? Oh, I just don't want to do the thing. But most of the time, what you actually are wanting help with is the emotional labor of deciding, right? Figuring out what is right for you. Every mom has experienced this. Like, or if you like take care, if you are the person who like has all the stuff in your head, you understand this, right?
The thing is, it's a relief when something happens that deprives you of a choice. It's
Yes.
just like, oh, fantastic. And like, they've changed the deadline and now I have no choice but to do it this way.
Yes. Right. So, Marcia, in your case, it's like, did you actually want somebody to like thrust products upon you and be like, hey, these are the things, right, you need. Or like, did you just need to flex the muscle of like, I could be the kind of person who buys the salon products and has the person advise me on what to do. I don't know, right? But you figuring out the answer to that helps you decide, well, is this still the person who I want to help me? Or is that actually not the kind of help that I want to need, right? So that your independence doesn't have to be solving all the problems for yourself.
Well, in this example, I had kind of tried all the things on my own. And so
Yeah.
I was just like, I'm not getting results on my own. So I did want the product, and I wanted at least someone else's opinion. I don't know that I was like, sure this was like, there was just going to be this miracle product that makes my scalp happy, but at least it'd be something new to try. So, and
Yes.
then with some of the work, it kind of falls into the delegation stuff. Yeah, like I really want other people to help me with this project, but definitely I know there's a bunch of perfectionism wrapped up in it, but because I can recognize that, I'm like, okay, I gotta keep trying to get help.
Yes. This is part of the importance of knowing too, like which side of the coin you need help with, right? Is it the emotional labor, or is it the actual executing of the stuff? Because if it's the actual just, I need this on my plate, get it done, then you may care less about how it's done, depending on how urgent it is, right? But then those are often quicker fixes, right? Where like, or shorter term fixes where it's the equivalent of bringing somebody in from Fiverr, right? And it's like, just do the thing and then I'll be done with you, right? Whereas help with emotional labor is usually a relationship, is usually something that we need like some kind of mutual understanding about, right? So the perfectionism thing, that's where you need to figure out what the bear is. Like, why does it need to be perfect? And go through the questions like, what are you going to think about yourself if it's not? And who else is going to think what about you and your work if it's not done the way you want it to be done? And what's going to happen to your reputation? And more likely, what's going to happen to your self-identity if somebody half-asses it compared to how you would have done it?
It's very known that I'm not that I'm not doing it. I guess there's not risk there. I don't feel a lot of risk in that aspect.
Okay. That's where I would dig in though, and figure out like what happens if it's not done up to your standards, right? Because anytime there's perfectionism at play, it's that you or the people who would see whatever it is you're doing would change how they think about you if it's not done to your standards. How are the rest of you? Yes, Celia.
I wanted to say that this does get easier, and this program is one of the reasons why. You know, I'm in a situation where I really don't have time or space to hesitate on the asking, and sometimes that works out really well, and sometimes it doesn't. And I had two. I'm going to skip my hair experience and go straight to the Home Depot. Had two Home Depot experiences over the weekend. One, I dragged my kids, my oldest kids, haven't been shopping with them since COVID. They're now both taller than me. And it was the weirdest thing having these two they're not giants yet, but these two taller children next to me, and they ragged on each other the entire time. And I brought them because they are better at color, they're better at space, they're better at visualizing. You know, they have all of these skills that I don't have. And I had about 24 hours to get all of the products for the basement bathroom, which was ripped out in the course of doing an extension. And they argued, and they were just completely uncooperative, but we did end up with the products. Okay. And then when I got home, I realized that the tile we chose was my first choice tile for our extension bathroom, that my husband had said, no, I don't like that one as much as the other one. So, and they had chosen it. I was like, just shut up and choose something. And they chose my first choice tile. So that's, yeah. So it worked out despite the BS that they put me through because they're teenagers. But then I had to go back alone last night, and I needed a loader because I had some heavy stuff, and the loader didn't come, the loader didn't come, the loader didn't come. And there were people working there who were in their late 70s, and I'm not going to ask someone that old to help me load. So finally I waited about 15 minutes, and I said, you know, I'm going to manifest the shit out of this. And I went to the car, and there was nobody around. And finally clearly a contractor is coming out to load up his truck. And I'm like, sir, I need your assistance, please. And, you know, that's not really the sort of thing you do in Canada, but it worked out. And he came over and didn't even grumble. He might have rolled his eyes, but didn't even grumble, helped me load the car. You know, I said, thank you very much, and walked away. But what I'm saying is I don't hesitate to ask. I'm not shy about that anymore. I'm not, oh, what will he think about me? You know, none of that stuff is a problem for me anymore. And even in business, it's becoming a lot easier. So it does get better, and the work is worth it. even the honesty shift, which you may not believe it. But
I'm not there yet.
Yeah. Good luck.
You bring up a good point though, right? That especially if you've been super independent, asking for help creates vulnerability, right? Because it implies I cannot or am not willing to on my own, right? And but here's the other thing, vulnerability is relative, right? So like Celia is in a place where she needs to make fast decisions. I gave far less fucks with every kid that I had, right? Like, oh, the car hatch, like in the back, used to not stay open. I would have other people load my groceries for me. I'm like, I'm not holding a baby and then holding the hatch with my head and loading the groceries. No, like can you just hold this for a minute so I can put my groceries in, right? But that I was willing to make myself vulnerable like that because I had a baby with me, right? And so it was relative. If I would have been by myself at the grocery store and had no baby on my hip, I would have felt dumb asking for help, right? Because all of a sudden then I would have been completely capable. So the important thing with this though, is that some of you have learned that, I won't divulge, but someone in here replied to my email and said that those 51 things that I wrote out, like one of them that hit home for that person was that in an emergency situation, you are like, I am on top of it, right? If there is urgency or chaos, then I have all the energy and answers,
Chaos
right?
signal.
Yes, right. So, but this is again, like a trauma thing where you guys learned that shit can come out of nowhere. Something might come from left field and then I will become hyper focused, right? Then I will like be able to make all the decisions. Then I will be able to figure out what it is I want. Then I will find all of the energy, which is moderately bad. But the worst part about this is that, yeah, superpowers activated, right? But here's the problem is that if you start to learn that the only way my superpowers are activated is when things go really, really wrong, then you will not take action. You will not do the things you're fully capable of until there's some kind of emergency. I have had people who consistently made 80% of their income in the last 5 days of every month because the mortgage or the rent was due on the 1st. And they were like, Jess, I'm kind of sick of like having to hustle the last 5 days every month. And it always works and I always get it done, but it's kind of getting old. If you are in feast and famine and your income goes like this, that's probably why, right? If you promote yourself very irregularly based on when there is some kind of emergency, that's all this, right? Where your body and your brain have learned, I'm better off saving my energy for these things that might come out of nowhere, right? And get me. And so like, it's going to happen if we wait long enough. Some giant ass grizzly bear is going to come out of the woods and I will have to sprint. Right. And so we learned that, but then that means that we like literally just sit around waiting for the bears. Okay. Whether that is, oh crap, all my clients dried up. Nobody's opening my emails anymore because I have not sent any in 9 months. Like, like whatever it is, okay, you'll rest because you're waiting for some kind of problem to show up. So what do we do about that? You have to start showing yourself that, one, you're going to have whatever energy you need to for whatever emergencies come up. Do you trust your ability? Because you guys, that still happens. It's not like any of us like wanted COVID to happen. It affected the whole friggin' planet, right? And none of us had any control over that. Okay, so let's not like live in the fairyland that things aren't going to come out of left field. That still happens. Okay, so it's not about preventing every calamity possible. It's about knowing that when something comes, I trust my ability to deal with it and respond appropriately. But in the meantime, it's not like I'm just going to sit and wait for the bears to find me. I'm going to do my thing. But it has to be safe to use your time and energy for those things before you're going to allow yourself to actually focus on something other than things that might come out of left field. How does this sit with you all?
I think even if you don't go to the extreme of you don't do anything, you don't do as much as you could.
Yes.
Because you play small, you keep your reach small because you're afraid of what happens if you push it further, and then if something does come out of left field, suddenly you're out of capacity.
Yes. Yes. Many people will not sell as much as they could because like, but what if I sell too much? And then I have too many people and then I can't do as good as I want to, right? What if I am too successful and I can't handle it? You guys, you can always find somewhere to give money to. Nothing says you have to keep money or clients or really anything. Too much of anything can usually be gotten rid of unless it is come across in nefarious ways. Yes. Right. Which I assume we're not dealing with here. Right. So you can pretty much get rid of whatever you have too much of. The question there is, do you trust that you will? Some of you are old doers. You're like, oh yeah, I just crush it. If I make a commitment to somebody, I show up for it. Mm-hmm. Oh, I will overcommit. Mm-hmm. And so what you don't trust about yourself then is that, ooh, if I sell too much, if I get too many clients, if I am too successful, I don't trust that I'm going to allow myself to be like, yo, really sorry, here's your money back. I can't take on this project right now, because that would be shameful, right? And if you don't trust that about yourself, if you don't trust yourself to put up a hard boundary with family members after you win the lottery, if you don't trust yourself to, like I said, like get rid of excess, you're going to have a hard time allowing yourself to go for more. Quick note, I want to do the do or be or thing since I said I was going to do that earlier. So this is completely about how it is you're wired to grow. Okay. It's not about actually how much you're doing. So do not make the mistake of thinking that beers don't take any action or that doers are the more active ones. Okay. That would be not true. Doers grow by creating a result for themselves. So they have to go make the money. They have to go pitch the thing. They have to write the email. They have to do until they get a result. And once they get that result, they're like, oh, I'm that kind of person. And they see themselves differently because they've done the thing, right? So they go to the gym all the time and all of a sudden they have a six pack. They go to the gym all the time and now they like can do a handstand, whatever, right? And now they're like, got it. I am an athlete. Cool. Beers have to take on the identity first. They would have to see themselves as an athlete before they're going to allow themselves to show up at the gym every day, right? They're going to have to see themselves as an entrepreneur before they will allow themselves to sell as much as they could. They're going to have to see themselves as somebody who sells and markets easily before they're going to allow themselves to post on social media as much as they could, whatever, right? So they have to embody an identity before they will get the result, okay? The vast majority of people in prep work lean towards beer. You are not just one or the other. You may be one in one area of life and another in another. But the vast majority of people in prep work are lean towards beer. And I'll clarify that even more to say that many people who end up kind of in my bubble were once doers, so high achiever sorts who got all the gold stars, right? Whether literally or figuratively, and then burned out really hard, couldn't show up like that anymore, and then became a beer, okay? We can talk more about that ad nauseum, but I wanted to throw that out there so we're all like at least loosely on the same page. Oh, here we go again. See, like I've lost the chat. Yes. Okay, how are you guys? Oh yeah, so Dana brought up a good point. She said, like, that's why goal setting no longer works for me with too much specificity, right? Most of you have heard me talk about lead goals and lag goals. We'll talk about that in the validation shift. But yeah, for most of you, setting a, like, I will hit X dollars, I will make X sales is just an absolute recipe for disaster, because you will either work yourself to death to make it happen, right? Like your body and your brain takes it as like an ultimatum. We have to, or we'll die. Or you are completely dejected by it if it doesn't happen. And then it just creates this downward spiral of like, I never reach my goals. And then, oh, maybe I'm not cut out for this. And like, you know, down the rabbit hole.
I think sometimes as well, like you do it, whatever it is, and then there's nothing. It's just like, I tick the box, nothing's changed.
Yes. More on that later.
So would waiting for the urgency thing, that's kind of like being proactive and reactive. Well, would that make a shift? Because sometimes I sit there and I'm like, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. Then suddenly, bam, I have to do something.
Yes.
That I don't even know if I did the right thing, but I did I mean, I had to do it. So
yes. So that's a little bit.
I need to decide quicker.
Okay. So you bring up a good point, right? In terms of proactive, reactive. If we think about this, like I said, like I'm basically just sitting on the path, waiting for the bear to cross me. And when the bear crosses my path, then I will get my butt up and run. That is reactive, right? Oh, when somebody comes to me, when there's a big opportunity, when, you know, when I'm about to, when I need to pay taxes, right? Like, then sometimes we get good at artificially manufacturing something that we have to react to, right? Proactivity really requires that, one, you have chosen what it is you want for yourself. And then that you are actually willing to go for it, which often means, do you believe you deserve that thing? Okay. A lot of you are not proactively pursuing what it is you want because there's some piece of you that doesn't believe you deserve that. Whether it's like, I don't believe I deserve for it to be that easy. I don't believe I deserve to make that much money. I don't believe I deserve to work with that level of client, whatever, right? But the proactivity doesn't come because you're not yet willing to pursue, which is why we practice small asks, because you're proactively saying, this is what I want, right? And that is a muscle that many of you have not flexed. Does that make sense, Kimberly?
Mhm.
I think
Yeah,
as well, it often doesn't show up like that. Like you don't use that wording to yourself. You use some
No.
other wording that's more convincing.
Yes.
and then I did some little thing and realized I have a money issue as well. So I've been trying to work on that because I guess in my head it's like I don't want more money because with money comes problems. So I'm like shooting myself in the foot again
Yes.
because I
So
think
that's
you got more money, get more problems, more taxes, more
yes.
aunts and
This
uncles.
is, yes. Yeah. This is a good example. Can I handle the more? You will not proactively go for the thing. Like most people are not going to be like, no, I don't really want more money. Not a thing. Right. But if your head thinks that more money equals more problems and I cannot handle more problems, okay, oh, you won't go for it. You guys, if you skew towards beer, the two things to know: you're going to feel more scarcity around energy than anything else. Beers will conserve all the energy. Like, no, I'm not good. No, that looks like that might, I could burn out if we start to go down that path. So just know, I might have to set a boundary with a parent if I make that much money. So no, that could make for an awkward Thanksgiving discussion. So, no, right? And so we just like, I'm going to do what it is I know I can handle. Mason said it earlier when they were like I'm afraid of being at capacity, right? You guys, we avoid being at capacity because then what if some kind of shit comes out of left field? Well, but then I'm already at capacity. And then what am I supposed to do? Right? So practicing getting rid of things that keep you at capacity, practicing choosing what it is you allow to keep you at capacity, and practicing that the things that you choose to do give you more capacity. What do I mean by that? 80% of the work you do should give you energy. You should get done doing that work and feel better than had you not done it. I would not do these calls if I did not get off of them and feel like I am hopped up on something fantastic. Okay, I just wouldn't do it. But that's also why I don't like write a bunch of sales copy or something, right? Because that feels like pulling teeth to me. But you drop me in a Zoom room and I'm like, I am here for this. Okay, but I know that. And so I've had to construct my business around that. But that means I had to proactively allow myself to be like, these things, these are not things for me. Can I tell you how much I almost crapped my pants when I made a list that was like, I don't write copy. I don't do social media. I made this list of like all these things you're supposed to do to grow your business. And I was like, geez, Ely, like, what are you going to do? There's hardly anything left, right? But I had to let myself proactively say, if it's not going to be this, then what's left? I noticed that what I was tolerating was a lot of ideas about how it is I needed to be, what was going to work, And then as soon as I let myself say, you know what, I'm not going to tolerate that anymore, I could focus on what was actually going to work for me. Okay, well, how do I get in more Zoom rooms? Okay, well, how do I get in front of more people like this? That means that sometimes people ask me to like come talk to their people, and I'm like, yo, I don't do PowerPoints. I just show up and I talk. And sometimes people are like, does that work for you? And I'm like, that is the only thing that works for me. You can take it or leave it. And some people have been like, thanks, no thanks. And I'm like, great, you just saved me a lot of energy. That's how I don't get to capacity. I don't let myself do shit that drains me, right? Now, admittedly, I have some layers of privilege here that allow me to do that, like 5 years of business under my belt, where I can just call somebody and be like, yo, I need to be in your group. And they'll be like, okay, cool. When do you want to come in? It took time to build those relationships, right? I cash in on that regularly. But that's what you're working towards, is that fundamentally what you're doing gives you more space. It gives you more capacity. Nothing drains your capacity more than feeling like you have to do something. There are things we have to do. If you have small children, you must feed them. Sorry. That's a thing. If you have a pet, you got to walk them. Okay? Can't help you there. That's where you have to practice flipping your motivation, right? Use the questions that I wrote out. Flip your motivation so that it's a thing you actually want to do. You may need to spend 6 weeks figuring out how to flip your motivation on something that you do not want to do, but really need to do right now. We've talked about this before, right? With some of you. Well, heck, Bobby even mentioned it, that like a few years ago, I was like, Bobby, if you just want a house, go get a job. I totally forgot about that until you like wrote that to me. I was like, I did say that, didn't I? And then she actually went and did it. That's kind of crazy.
Yes, I did. And it's crazy even thinking about that because I got the house.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So we moved a year
That's really
ago,
cool.
but it was a good experience.
But there was a time where you were really convinced that you had to do that like through a business,
Mhm.
right? And like your big thing was like, oh, but I got to get the business to a certain place. And I'm like, but if you just want a house, then just go make money. Like, who cares?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah. I figured it out along the way. In kind of a twisty, windy path. Cause I got a job and I didn't even do anything that was in the direction of the business I was trying to create. I did something completely different, and it completely changed the direction of where I'm at now in my life, which is
Yes.
weird.
Yes. Yes, Victoria.
I had a question. So I just joined yesterday, so I'm like brand new to the modules, but I watched the first one, like the first inspiration ship, and I really resonated where you were explaining self-care versus self-discipline / self-indulgence, and clearly you called me out on that. But so I guess my thing that I struggle with, and I'm trying to like set more boundaries in my life, and I hold myself to such a high standard that anytime that I don't do something, it's like, well, I just need more self-discipline. And so for me, it's just like, it's very hard to stop that narrative when I've literally grown up all my life with like achieving and like, elitist family that like only, like compare, like there's just so much baggage that is like, if I don't perform to a certain extent, then I have let myself down. And I'm not even really concerned about other people. It's like, I'm concerned about myself. So like,
Yeah.
how do I embrace self-care more in a compassionate way?
What is the thing where you find yourself like wanting more discipline?
Well, I mean, obviously my business, I just feel like I'm just always on like, what can I do next? And I think part of the issue that I have identified is because I don't have I don't have children. I don't have any responsibilities. Like I don't have things that like could take away like, or that I could spend time doing other things. So I'm like, well, I might as well work on my business because like, you know, so I definitely need to find other areas. And I do have hobbies and stuff like that, but it's more like in terms of like achieving things or like taking care of something. It's like, well, I can take care of my business and like write an email. So yeah, that's where
So
I'm at.
that's basically like, I could achieve by default, right? Like my default should be that I want more. This is a very Western idea, by the way, right? Like, oh, the right thing to do is just pursue more for the sake of more. Because like, why wouldn't you? Because otherwise you're just being a lazy chump on the couch, right? Like who wants to do that? Okay. Dana has embraced it. Okay, so the thing you're missing there is like, but why? Or like, why do you want to? This like, why would you want to be more disciplined? Why do you want your business to give you more? Do you have answers for that?
Well, I guess I don't want to be a failure. I mean, that is probably the worst thing that could be.
Yeah.
Yeah, just because like, yeah, I mean, both my siblings are older and they are very accomplished in their own field. So it always feels like I'm the young one who is trying to be as successful as them. And I know I'm never going to reach that level of success because that is just insane level. But I'm like, at least I want to be somewhat, yeah, it's obviously, you know, you want to be respected in your own family or like feel like, you know, you're not the last kid that didn't do much.
How many bears did we count there? It was just like a whole bear family just marched right through here. I don't want to be a failure. You guys, like the easiest way to catch this is like, are you speaking in the negative? I don't want to be a failure. I don't want my family to see me this way. I don't want to be the one who doesn't amount to something. I don't. None of this. I haven't decided what, but none of that, because that's like really bad. Right? Okay. So you have lots of clarity around what it is you don't want. And there are some things that you said that start hinting towards some identities that you hold really close, right? Like, oh, I want to at least be like this. So in some way, you probably see yourself as like the inferior little sibling, right? Who in some way needs to like at least prove this much, right? All of us, you guys, have some kind of core identity that we hold very, very dear to us. For years and years, the one that I held close to the vest was me being smart, or me having my shit together, or me, does your shirt say serious business lady or something? Is that, oh yeah, oh, that's well-timed. So I was like, I did not just see that. Can't make this shit up. So I wanted to be the person who was smart, right? Because that's the label that I got as a little kid, right? And so I needed to keep looking smart. I needed to keep being the one who had her stuff together. I needed to keep being the one who had the answers. Well, but that meant that I couldn't suck at anything. I couldn't like experiment with anything. There were all these things I couldn't do because I wanted to make sure that I was always seen this way, right? And so there are probably those things for you as well, where you're like, if all else fails, I must at least be this. For a lot of you, it's like independent. I refuse to not be independent. It'll be things like, I must be resourceful. I must be oh, like integrity is big for a lot of people, right? Like I will only do things if I absolutely positively know that I can, right? If I can guarantee your results and your happiness, then I will do it for you and sell it to you. But until then, I won't take your money, right? Makes it. Hi, Alan. Thank you for joining us. So figuring out like, what is that thing that you are protecting? Okay. If you figure out, well, okay, I have to always be seen in XYZ kind of way, right? Then it's not about like, oh, I'm scared of failing. It's not about, oh, I have to at least like, here's the bar so that I don't get crap at the holidays from my family, right? Here's the bar so that like I'm at least moderately successful enough that nobody gives me the side eye. Here's the bar so that I can wear this shirt in public and not feel like a total fraud, right? And you will like, if you don't need to protect yourself, then you are free to go do the things that actually like use your skills, use who you are, right? But as long as we are protecting some key piece of us, it's really hard to let ourselves like move forward. You can't, you guys, you cannot look backwards at the bear that is chasing you and run a marathon course. It cannot be done. Yes, you will run into a tree, which just creates like more things to be scared and nervous about, right? Like I know like we really embrace this analogy around here, but like it is for good reason. Have a think on that. My kid just woke up. I'm just going to like toss him out there. There's another responsible adult out there. I'm not just letting a 1-year-old crawl around the house, lest you think that I'm a monster, but I'm going to do that real quick.
Probably a good time to remind everybody that if you want to save the chat, just click on the 3 dots at the bottom right and you can save the chat. Sometimes that's where the real snark is.
Okay, how are you all? Questions, comments, cares, concerns?
So I have a question.
Yes.
And you were talking a little bit about traumas and, you know, previous traumas. And actually the last couple of weeks, I've been thinking on this a little bit more deeply. I think, and not to make an excuse about it, but when I was younger in school, and I'm way beyond this now, but I had a guidance counselor who told me that I was underperforming for my capacity. And he labeled me an underachiever. And so I love my business. I feel very energized by my business. But what I find is that there are pieces of my business that I don't do as well in, like marketing. And when I don't do as well at the marketing or social media or whatever, I always think back to that comment. And not that it was such a traumatic comment, but it does linger and it does live with me. And regardless of what I've achieved since that time, or how amazing it feels to have, you know, clients to work with and, you know, what I can do for them, when I fail at different pieces, I always think back to that traumatic comment. How do we get past that?
Okay, the first thing is we stop putting trauma in quotes.
Okay.
It's relative, okay? Like, were you a war victim? No, right? Like, did you endure some kind of terrible car crash? No, it does not matter. You guys, trauma is relative and your body decides what is trauma, not your head, okay? So it doesn't matter if logically you're like, oh, but like that was like not really a trauma, right? Because like I was just called something. You do not get to decide what is trauma, okay? If you did, your prefrontal cortex would be engaged and then it wouldn't be trauma. So that's not how it works. And so the first thing we do is we stop minimizing the fact that something had a profound impact on us. Like, I'm kind of poking fun at you, but I'm kind of being dead serious. Is the first thing we do is we're like, yo, this sucked. And it's been screwing with me for 30 years, however long. Okay. That's the first thing we do.
Okay.
Okay. So then, wait, let's see here. Oh yeah. Yes. Okay. Then it's there's a few places I would go. One, what meaning did your head and the rest of you give to that experience, right? There's some reason why whatever it is you guys replay in your head was profound.
Mm-hmm.
And usually it's because it flies in direct opposition to either how it is you perceived yourself or how it is you wanted to be perceived. So if you were always high working or high achieving or hard working, and then somebody comes in and is like, yo, you're kind of underachieving, right? And it's like, no, but I like to think of myself up here, and you just came in and made me question my self-perception. Okay. And if that person is an authority figure, somebody who's respected, a parent, where is Sam when we need her to thank dad for us? Okay. Like, if your self-perception gets questioned, by somebody who we respect or see as an authority, you're going to have a hard time brushing it off. Okay. So what did that version of you, whenever it happened, make that situation mean? Why was it impactful? Why did it make you question yourself? And then maybe the most important thing is, what did you need to hear at that time to correct what that person did?
Mm-hmm.
Like, yo, underachieving is not like coasting every once in a while, right? Being high achieving doesn't mean you have to crush it at everything. Not being the absolute best at something doesn't mean that you're not going to accomplish what it is you want. I don't know what it is, right? There's something though that you back then needed to hear or experience or have that you didn't get, that would kind of build you back up and keep your self-perception in place.
Yeah.
Right. You brought up kind of something that a lot of especially beers struggle with, which is this idea that, like, if I'm this good at what it is I do, then I also have to be that good at marketing, and I have to be that good at business, and I have to be that good at like web design. And like, some of you, before you know it, you're going to be like programmers and social media managers. And like, you could have 18 jobs off of all of the things you have trained yourself in, just because you think you have to be high achieving at all the things. You don't. It's like, conscious underachievement is really a good thing. Choose the places where you coast. You can't be good at everything. You don't want to be. It is a waste of time and energy. Jill doesn't like being bad at things. Then just don't do those things.
I think one of the things you said earlier is that, like, kind of the fact that you've been doing what you've been doing for 5 years gives you space and opportunity and things like that. I mean, one thing that I've found as I've progressed in my translation career, and I've decided to specialize. And so I said, like, right, out of all the topics in the world that I could be translating about, I'm going to do this one and this one.
Yes.
And that's it. Anything else, if I know someone who's good at that, I will refer them to you. I'm in a group, 2 groups of people where I can refer you to someone. And that has given me a lot of leverage. It's given me the power to just, like, without thinking about it, no mental load, no guilt, no nothing, just go, no, I don't do legal. No, I don't do engineering. No, I don't do chemistry. Here's someone who does. Good
Yes.
luck.
Yes.
And that is very kind of freeing. And also it means that I can specialize, and then I'm not competing with people in the same way. So you kind of think like, oh, well, I have to be as good as so-and-so. And so it's like, well, we actually don't do the same thing.
Yes.
And that's okay.
Jill, the only reason you would not like being bad at things is because you think you have to be good at something in order to avoid something that you don't want.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's the gifted oldest child, everything, you know, having been like told throughout my life that I was so good and so smart and whatever, anything that I am asked to do, I need to be the best at it. And even if it's a thing that I don't particularly want to do, I still have to be the best at it.
Yeah.
And it's a constant struggle.
Yeah. So that stems from a lack of clarity around what it is you do actually want. Right? Because growing up, right, if you grow up in like a very hierarchical, any type of like very structured environment, i.e. school, right? Or anything past that, you work hard, you get the gold star, you move to the next level. You work hard, you get the gold star, you move to the next level, right? And then eventually somebody bestows upon you this piece of paper that says, fantastic, you have done all the things, right? But like, it's not like anybody goes to school being like, I really want my diploma. Like, nobody gives a shit about the piece of paper. The only reason they want the piece of paper is so that they can like go to college, or so that, you know, they can like go get a job, right? Which is a crock too. But this is what happens when we don't really think about what it is we want. We just end up following like this trajectory and chasing gold stars. Oh, I have to be good at social media now. Oh, I have to be good at bookkeeping. I have to be good at all the things or else. But here's the problem, you guys, school blessedly ends at some, I mean, yes, I know you can go to grad school forever and ever and ever. So I suppose that's a possibility. Some of you would actually do that, right? So you can continue chasing the gold stars, I guess. Okay. But there is no such thing in business. You will never arrive at a place where you have learned all the things. So the pursuit of like, I'm good enough to go do what it is I want is going to stop you from actually going for whatever it is you want, right? It tells me if you're being chased by, I don't want to be bad at anything, it tells me you haven't decided what it is you do want. And I saw, Mason, you asked like, well, like, what if I don't know what I want? Then you welcome to like the throw spaghetti at the wall phase, which many people have heard me say, and everyone hates, especially if you've always had your shit together, because now I'm asking you to look like a lunatic and just throw spaghetti at the wall. Right? And it's like, what, did that stick? Nope, that didn't stick either. To try another thing, right? But if you are in the place where you're like, I don't know what I want, okay? If you are in the place where you're like, I'm not really sure what it is that's important to me. I'm not really sure what it is I am motivated by. Then everything that you do right now is for the purpose of gaining clarity around what it is you do want. That doesn't mean you can't make money in the meantime. That doesn't mean that you can't like make progress, right? But the data point that you are looking for is, do I like this or not? Yes or no? More of this, less of this, right? We'll talk about this next week. This is kind of seeking shift stuff. But fundamentally, you're lacking a goal to pursue. Jill, how deeply unsatisfying is that?
I mean, I think that you're right, because I've, it's not necessarily that I don't know what the goal that I want to pursue is. It's that I get to that goal and I say, maybe this isn't actually what I wanted. So I'm still in that process of trying to figure out like, what is the ultimate goal? And like, how do I get there? Because that's the whole other thing. Like, ultimately, I'd love to do nothing but teach yoga and write. How do I get there? Like, it's so what are the incremental goals in between? But I feel like every time I hit that goal, it's kind of like, this is not enough.
Yeah, because you are applying a doer structure to a beer way of existing. You're like, I'm going to get this thing. Shit, that wasn't it either. Okay, I'm going to go for the next thing. Not it either, right? Oh, I'm going to pursue the next thing. Then I get that thing. Nope, not it. Okay, so how would you feel if you were a yoga teacher and writer and that's all you did?
I think I'd be pretty happy with that.
How would you feel?
I mean, I'd be like, in what way? Like, how would I
picture yourself day in, day out? All you're doing is like teaching yoga classes and like writing while in a handstand or something. I don't know. Mad skills. We've got to be high achiever if we're going to do this, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think that, well, for starters, I'd probably get a lot more sleep. But I think that I'd probably be more satisfied than I am right now.
Okay, so that answer, I'd be more satisfied.
Mhm.
Okay, this is seeking shift preview. You're wanting satisfaction.
Mhm.
So the goals that you set for yourself right now are not like, okay, well, what number would make me feel satisfied this month? Because fundamentally, it's not going to be a number. And here's the thing. If it is a number, in 6 months, you won't be satisfied with that number. And then we're going to be having the same conversation all over again. Okay, so it's not a thing, right? To Arlene's point in the comments, like she's like, it's not really about like me hitting a thing anymore. It's not like about a specific goal. It's about how am I going to feel while I'm getting the thing. If you pursued satisfaction every day, I wonder what would change for you in like a month. You know, like one of the inspiration shift exercises is like writing down one thing that would make you proud of yourself, 3 things that you're proud of yourself for at the end of the day. Do that with satisfaction and see what happens. What would I feel satisfied doing today? And then 3 things at the end of the day that you were satisfied with how you showed up. Okay. You do that and you start to notice like, oh crap, I have some agency over my life. Which sounds like childish, but this is the problem, is that like, you guys, when you are coming from like a trauma-filled place, you have little agency. That's what trauma does. It takes away your choices. And so if what you're wanting is satisfaction, then the place where you can get some of that and recognize that you can do that for yourself are the places where you're going to start to break out of your trauma patterns.
Again, I think the problem is that like people don't phrase it to themselves in that way, because when you say that, it sounds completely reasonable. But I think maybe if you come from kind of more of a caregiver history or something like that, it's just like, well, I have to be the one who's being responsible and who is ticking all the boxes because other people aren't doing it. And if I don't do it, like somebody's going to end up in hospital or out on the streets or will lose the house. And so it's
Yes.
just kind of you end up not questioning it. Whereas
Yes,
if you looked at it, if you flip it and say like, isn't that kind of extreme? Couldn't you interpret that as trauma? Then the natural next step is to work on it and to try and change it. But I think it's just like kind of, you just feel driven, whether it's social, whether it's your own personal history, whether it's whatever it is, it's just kind of you just naturally go into that track. It's like the game of life where you kind of go to school, go to university, buy a house, get married, blah, blah, blah.
yes,
So I think you're kind of you're being swept along. And there's also an
Yes.
effort to get out of that or to decide whether it's what you want or not. It's not necessarily bad for you.
yes. This is why there's that whole sheet with like watch out phrases. I have to, I must, I need to, I should.
If I don't,
If I don't, yes, right? Because those are all places where you have no choice.
but you're
Those
telling
are
yourself
all-
you don't.
Right. Jill, I'd be really curious what happens if you do that.
Try it.
Okay. I have like some kind of strange curiosity about this now. I may like compulsively message you. Jill, did you do it? Do it. I want to know the results of this.
Yeah, please hold me accountable. Sure.
Text you at 10 o'clock at night. Jill, what are you satisfied
I'll
about
also be
today?
wide awake then.
How are the rest of you doing? Does somebody have a thought where they're like, I'm not really sure how this fits. This doesn't seem like it's what we were talking about. That's the thing we should talk about. Because I promise it's related.
I think I'm more on the plane of overwhelm. It's like, I guess it makes sense, but what do I do?
Tell me where it is you are most trying to create a result right now.
Well, I guess at home, I'm trying to get because I was through a whole home sell move thing. My home's kind of in an upheaval and still not settled. And then it's mainly for business wise, it's a client attraction. So I can make money that doesn't cause problems because I can pay my bills.
Okay. Okay, one practical note is that like go through the worksheet, right? It like breaks it down like step by step, like, okay, what's the thing we're talking about or thinking about that we're like, how do you feel about it, right? So that's the practical thing. The other thing, you guys, in general, 90% of what we talk about here is like planting seeds. Okay. Like, don't expect yourself to remember all this stuff. Don't hang up and be like, holy crap, I am screwed. Okay. Like, none of that. Like, we're just planting seeds here and they will germinate in their own time. Okay. So do not walk away from this. This isn't a class, you guys, where you need to take copious notes and then there's going to be a test at the end And then I will bestow you with like a mindset diploma. Oh my God. It's like, I mean, I could sell the heck out of that if I was not so ethical. Mason, real quick, if journaling doesn't work, talk it out. Like start a voice note in your phone or something. Or just talk to yourself while you're driving. It's totally fine. I talk to myself all the time. I don't know that I'm the model for normalcy, but okay, Kimberly. The first thing to figure out is why you want either of those things. Okay, why do you want the house ordered, settled, you know, set up the way you want it? Why do you want that? Right? I still have boxes in my basement 10 years later because, like, I do not want to be like my mother. That's my bear. So anything that reminds me of my mom, including being well organized, is like, nope. All right. But I have to know that about myself. You guys, there are certain things we just don't have the capacity to deal with right now. And that's okay. Don't have shit about your shit. If you see a bear, we don't need to like make a thing of it by staring at it and obsessing about it and wondering why there are so many of them and why is this one so big, and don't make it bigger.
Don't poke the bear.
Yes, exactly. Like, fine, it can just be there. That's okay. The real question here is like practicing letting yourself focus on what it is you do want. Okay. So I appreciate the colorful language. I talked about this on somebody's podcast, maybe Peter's. I think on Peter's podcast, I talked about like asking yourself 20-ish whys, right? You ask yourself, why do I want this over and over? What would that mean? What would that give me? Why do I want that? Right? And you kind of dig until the only thing you're left with is like, geez, these questions are annoying. I just want it. Okay. Right? Like if I ask my kid, well, like, why do you want that for Christmas? Like they'll have like a couple explanations. Oh, well, my friend has one. They look cool. Right. But eventually that line of questioning is going to get really annoying to them. And they're going to be like, I just want it, Mom. Stop. That's a good sign because it means you just want it. You just want more money. You just want more clients. It sounds fun to experiment with how you could grow the business. It sounds nice to come home to a home you feel comfortable in, whatever. You know that you have some shit around it. There are some bears. If you can keep answering the whys, and eventually it's going to be like, well, because if I don't, then this. If I don't have my house, if I don't have the income, if I don't have the clients, then it means that I'm something I don't want to be, right? That is how you start to practice this discernment of like, am I coming from a fear-based place or am I actually being positively motivated? 20 whys, okay? And from there, we can work on starting to shift the motivation. Does that give you a place to start at least, Kimberly? I don't want you like hanging up from here and feeling like steam is coming out of your ears.
Yeah, a starting place is yes, because
Okay.
I never know where to start some most of the time.
Okay, that's fine. The PDFs help, right? Because like in here, we tend to like go wherever, and that ends up being a lot. And I get that. Okay. But the PDFs are like, here's the first question. Here's the next question Jessica would ask me on a coaching call. Here's the next question she would ask me. So that's a little bit more linear then, and it might help you think through how to do things. Okay. This is where I would raise my merch mug that says questions, comments, cares, concerns. Or maybe point to a ball cap. Or I can get like a wall poster. I need to get that made. I so do. A sign on a stick. Oh, it could be like the photo booth props, right? I can just hold up the one in front of my face. And it's like, how's this sit? Questions, comments, cares, concerns. But is that a bear? Okay. I'm going to assume you're all either about to implode or terrified to raise your hand, which is fine. Either way. Please do not implode. Okay. Don't stew on this. I'm being serious about this. I don't want anybody to walk out of this feeling like this whole thing has just become like yet another sign of your inadequacy. Okay. Not the point. If you have questions, if you are overwhelmed, if you are like, wait, but how do I apply this to my life? That is what the Facebook group is good for. Okay. And there are plenty of people here who have been through all the things. 9 out of 10 times their answers are what I would say or better. So learn from each other. Okay. Seeking Shift is next week. We'll talk about all the feels, what we're going for. Okay. Let me know how you are doing, how things are sitting with you. Have a good week, guys. I'll see you later.